Hi there. Welcome to listeners from across the globe. My name is Noune, and this is Best Damn Reality, a new podcast intending to help bridge the spiritual and material worlds. Each week, I invite you to join me and to suspend all preconceived notions, to open your minds and your hearts to seeing everything from a much vaster perspective. Should you be enticed enough, please also consider visiting me on my YouTube channel and on my business Facebook page, both under the name Allison Noune. Now, sit back, relax, and enjoy the journey. Okay, good afternoon. Wednesday, February 3rd, 2021, 1:10 p.m. I'm getting this out of the way. Longest span has just passed in between recordings. Recordings intended to be shared for the public. Since I launched my podcast, the official launch was July 4th, but I ended up releasing my first episode a few days early, I think on June 30th. So essentially I've been going for 7 months, but have not been able to record the past month. Among other things, this podcast, this one focused aspect of a much vaster vision that I have been focused on in my world full-time now for over 8 years, is, among other things, a very raw sharing of the in the now moment journey, spiritual journey of one woman, myself, and just allowing a closer examination on the process that really can only be understood, or I'll say it this way, can be most appreciated if one has been through the process. And I would go further and say it is my most appropriate target audience are people that are going through this right now and or have gone through this, I'd say, within the past 5 to 10 years. And what is this? A spiritual awakening, like a conscious spiritual awakening, which in essence simply means everything you thought was true and how you thought everything worked. You finally get enough of the veil of the illusion removed to realize and not be fearful anymore, to accept that the greater truth is anything really is possible. We have been conditioned and limited and constricted in tremendous ways for eons as a humanity. And quite literally right now, we are experiencing, each and every one of us alive in form on this planet, are experiencing a monumental shift in humanity via consciousness. And when you wake up to that and get to what I call for myself was my point of no return, where it was like, there is no going back to what I used to believe was true. Like, it's just blown out of the water, and you literally cannot help but to play a different game. But that different game, that new game, is not manifested in mass in the physical earth dimension yet. We are in the transition. And I use a lot of metaphors, but the one that I feel is not only most familiar to me as a former athlete, but it also happens to be the metaphor that I believe speaks to the greatest number of people on the planet, and that is the metaphor of sports. And another aspect of my work, this one is more describing an intention or goal of it, is to reach as many human beings as possible in an effort to try to tap into their soul, at their soul level, if only to ignite them. In fact, it's really more to ignite souls than to really have any extended, in-depth experiences with many. It's intending to reach people, ignite their souls, and speak to a world that is in the physical, in mass, that has resulted from efforts made by humans exerting conscious, co-creative intentions and working and taking those intentions with their skill sets into the world to co-create with others. Not just blindly following a preconceived and really a purposeful system and framework that is really meant to keep humans in place, more like slaves than as independent beings here to create. And that is what we are. I was ignited here in this moment, and this is complete stream of consciousness. In fact, I dare say this one probably will not be released on the podcast, for I have not allowed a recording like this on there yet. One where I am fully aware of how many jumps I'm making, that I'm not really completing any single thought, and I'm bouncing from sort of, one description of something and then flowing into something else. It's like I have to work to not think the way that I'm wired. And I believe the podcast is helping me create and find a way, a space for me to share that utilizes that aspect of myself. Meaning, right now, the podcast is my main medium, and very, very, very few are listening. But it is my medium to share what the title suggests. Any way that I am called to try to describe with words, which I really can't, what I mean by this beautiful potential we have at present to recreate the best reality we can possibly imagine. It's possible. It's possible. It's possible to create a world of our dreams. In fact, it's what we're here to do, to be and do. It's to finally remember who we are at our essences. And to take it for a ride. To take that memory, that powerful memory of the pure energy that we are, and this absolute fact that if we can imagine it, it's already real in some way. And bringing these imagined things into reality, and how to do that. And I can't be afraid like I've been. And I'm not even going to give more voice to that anymore. Although I swore I wouldn't mention it today, and there it is, slipping out again. It's funny because as much as I want to share in, the times where this is the point that's important to share, when I've been kind of down, and as I am, feeling myself for real coming up out of the depths of a downward spiral. And this month, and thankfully, when I go dark and down now, it's not, nearly as, it's not for nearly as long as it used to be. Interestingly, a bit ironically, and certain, in some ways, a paradox as well, even though I don't go dark for very long these days when I go dark deeper. And I think it's only because I'm aware of so much more, if only how important it is, my awareness and my attention and my focus. So it matters to give the down more energy. Only do that if you want to continue to stay in the down. But there's this balance, I feel like, that you just have to do. I mean, you got to be down there long enough to deal with whatever the down is trying to reveal to you. But you really don't have to be down there. It's not interminable. It's not unending. It's not infinite. And you really are the one that gets to decide, how long you're going to be dark and for how long you want to choose to focus your energy and attention in ways that are not serving you. Yet there's a purpose to that dark, So I think speaking to it and the journey in, through, and around it is one that's important, but it's definitely, quote unquote, risky, especially if I elect to do it when I'm actually still in it, because all I'm doing then is inviting people to feed it. And I don't want to stay in it. My interest and what I feel is a call to share and be open and raw with it is to help others to learn how to get out of it themselves, because we are the only ones that can get out of it. So I feel like what can be more real than witnessing somebody, in their depths consciously talk themselves out of their own downward spiral, and learning how to go within, to the God within, to the spirit within, to whatever you call that higher energy, that, for the guidance, for the answers, because they're there. And I don't know. So it's a risk. It's a risk to talk when I'm in a place like I've been in the past month, because I don't want to linger in it. But it gets less risky when I can genuinely feel myself begin to come out of it. And I know that I'm reaching that point simply with my own little way of gauging in my own world, because I was inspired to turn on the recorder just now. And when I first started this 8 years ago, no discernment. I was definitely sharing a lot, and I actually had quite a few people, at least compared to now, watching. When I first took this leap of faith eight years ago, there were quite a few people, and powerful people. Most notably, my Seattle, Washington Microsoft crowd, but also my family. A lot of people were watching, and it was innocent enough, but boy, I opened the door to some of those dark places, and I didn't have any discernment. I don't regret anything, but I definitely shared way too much with in too vast a manner, to too vast an audience. Certain topics, certain videos might have been more appropriate with smaller crowds or specific individuals even, but to just release it all on YouTube, essentially for the world to see, I was part of my journey. I had to mature into, I had to learn, I had to grow. But now, knowing, and only I can know how much discernment I'm executing and utilizing in my world at present. But I can assure you, certainly as compared to 8 years ago, it's like a totally different dimension of how much discernment I am using. And rarely am I sharing anything public these days. Rarely. So when I do choose to share, believe me, it is not an accidental decision, because I know how I know enough of how energy and attention and exposing oneself, I know enough how that works. And this balance of trying to balance what my soul's mission is, what my calling is, and balancing that with the very real human ego aspect side of Allison is fucking real. And again, you don't fucking get it unless you're in it or been there. And I would even say been there recently, because it is a trip when you start to wake up and recognize the power you have and decide to go after the world and life of your dreams. It's the only thing you've ever wanted to do. And you're starting to do it at knocking on 40 years old. So you've got all these habits and patterns, and man, and you have to juggle both worlds. We had to juggle both worlds, the old game and the new game. to close off a very far tangent from long ago. The old game and the new game. You got to be able to play two games. But that old game is definitely fading away. And it's fading away fast, and it's fading away in a really big, well, it's not yet in a big way. It will be it's happening, but it blows my mind how many people are still not seeing and not willing to see all the evidence like lying in front of you of how much we've been lied to and how much bigger reality is and how much more we're able to be and do for each other and for ourselves. Oh my God, and it's all being revealed, but many, 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 many millions of people, if not billions across the planet, are still really reticent to allow themselves to feel this inevitable shift. It's happening, folks. Go ahead. You can try to, label it whatever negative connotation. Call people that are talking about this conspiracy theorists, call them mentally ill, call them dreamers, call them whatever you want to call them. It's okay. There's nothing to be afraid of. This is a magnificent, magnificent time to be alive, and it has been very hard to hold on to that fact. And I will say fact. And we'll just say it's an option. It's an option because like with everything down in this dimension, we have free will. You can choose to believe, to see it, and put the pieces together however you want. If you want to believe 2 + 2 = 5 and want to continue to believe that 2 + 2 = 5, hey, by all means, you could totally do that. And clearly you're going to find a lot of other people that are willing to do that as well. But for those who want to see and participate in co-creating a new version of Earth, that option is also very real and very, very present. And it's about to skyrocket here soon. And so I have a feeling that if I resist this dancing between the dimensions, this playing two games, if you will, it's going to get even harder. Because, you just can't, you got to be, the only way through the game is to be you, to be as authentic as possible, to be as real and as open and as authentic as possible, and to always remember the number one rule is self-love. You have to love your vessel that you're in. If you take a vessel and take yourself out in the world and you're not taking care of yourself, no one else out there is going to take care of you. But it's what I call divine selfishness. It's divine selfishness, as opposed to, let's just say, and call it earthbound selfishness, ego selfishness. This is divine selfishness. And, I used to say, I'm not leaving my wingman. A quote from one of my absolute favorite movies from when I was a movie fan. I'm no longer much of a movie fan, but back in the day, man, movies saved my life. And who didn't love, especially a girl of my age at that time in 1986, Top Gun. But, the greatest lesson Maverick's character learned in that movie was, via a really hard way. The death of his best friend, and was, I'm not leaving my wingman. I'm not leaving my wingman. And for me, I'm not leaving my self-love. I'm not leaving my wingman. Took me 40 plus years to finally begin to understand, not only understand what it meant to love myself through and through, but how to do it. I had to understand it. I had to give myself permission to do it. And then learning how to execute that in this human vessel through my choices, especially given I don't live in a hierarchy-based world of work. I live in a self-created world of work. So I don't have any, nor would I ever want to, do I ever? I can't stand hierarchy. I can't stand it. Certainly in value, but in our world, It's, job. I just can't stand hierarchy. I want to come to the table and be and live and do things as equals with just different, unique experiences, and being able to learn how to respect and honor those, even if you don't personally agree or understand people's personal choices and experiences and past accomplishments, if you will. Oh my God. Yeah. So stream of consciousness. Oh my God. I mean, it's just like I've been blocking this. It's almost like all this is coming out this way because 4 weeks of blocking it. I mean, really holding myself back. I mean, certainly I didn't have to not record at all. I could have done something like this, which is probably a recording just for me. I don't know that I'll release this. Maybe I'll release it on my YouTube channel, but I don't know. Not many people can hold the space for something so fucking all over. But I just needed to drop it. And I, because I need to go back to the farm, or to the farm for my work shift today. And I didn't really have time to record. I knew I was going to be scattered and all over and stream of consciousness, but Iron Man called me and I've got a meeting with them. I just found out that 3 of the biggest local events that I've worked for, 2 of them I've worked over a decade. I got new dates for those, and those are in the fall. And my intuition tells me that events are going to be allowed and without any masks and all that horse shit by that time. And wow, it's like I've got to get my other world, my other game. I got to get my game in my world solid, so that when I go back to that other game, I don't have to mention a word about my game. But re-entering that world with my world actually more in flow and manifest in the physical, it's the real deal. It's the real deal. So I need to start, really letting go creatively and just sharing and just trust that it's going to get woven together. I'm trying to overthink it. The character Allison is trying to think it together. I'm and it's not for me to decide that. It's the divine. It's the divine plan, the universe, the cosmos. I've got to reconnect stronger to that. And it's just not something you can bullshit or fake. You have to, that is the key. And, surrendering yourself to this higher power, but then remembering you've got to make the choices in your character, free will, and you do it all. This all executes through the heart and through love. And first and foremost, through love of yourself. Now, yes, I want my whole future to be about service to others, but there's a bare minimum that I desire for myself. And it's not a huge amount. But I have to make sure that I'm taking care of that bare minimum and not relying or depending on anybody else or anything outside of me to take care of my bare minimum. And if I'm making choices. Is my bare minimum the bare minimum? No, of course not. I could be living out of my car if I wanted to be. That's bare minimum. Talk about having no material things, but that's not how I want to live. I don't want to live impoverished. I don't want or need to live in tremendous glamour and glitz either. I just want something, I have the basic desire for myself. I'm not settling for anything less for that. And I made that decision 8 years ago when I moved into this home. I was renting it at the time, but some serious shit has manifested in that time for real. Because what I essentially said to the universe 8 years ago, just over 8 years ago, when I made that decision to sign a year lease, after coming back to Florida, when I vowed I was never going to return to Florida, I loved Seattle. I loved Washington. I think I would have struggled the past year there tremendously, but I love that part of the country. I was surrendering my life to something bigger than me, and I was saying, look, I need I need and want a standalone place. I want to have the ability to host at least 1 or 2 people. I may be single the rest of my life. So I want, this is what I want. This is my bare minimum. And I'm going to bust my ass until I get myself supporting that. Because what I have here, this is not my dream of dreams. But I can absolutely live like a queen. When I reach the point finally where I'm really supporting myself in these, in this situation in Sarasota, Florida, truly not ever compromising in terms of the work, which is to say accepting work that it's just not ideal, right? Where I still feel like, damn, I just want to bring this to the table and have others actually see what I'm bringing to the table and acknowledge it, rather than just making the best of the pieces that are there, which is, and the role that I'm playing, which is often one that I'm settling for. I would like to play different roles. Using different skill sets. And it's been a tremendous opportunity, challenge to create that opportunity, but it's knocking on the door. I could feel it. But it's just to say that this was the bare minimum. And ultimately, the bare minimum, once I got to the only piece missing, and it's not even that big, and it's really not even missing only by my perception of it missing, is it missing? It's not missing. Is that I still am, all my work for money is hard. And I don't make, as compared to, comparison's bad. We're not going to say that. I'm going to end this. I need to get to the farm. I just wanted to capture the energy. And I'm just going to conclude with gratitude. There's so much going on. We're shifting into a completely different game. It's literally dancing between dimensions. It's not something you can overthink. It's something you feel. And it's something that's in your heart, and it's love. And it's cooperation, and it's service to others. And, after you follow, divinely selfish rule of, taking care of yourself first, it's, I think people on a certain level are absolutely yearning and ready. I think the masses are ready for it in that way. They know, they've been calling for it energetically. But in terms of how to execute what that kind of world looks like, people don't have a fuck clue, man. Most of us have been conditioned into hierarchy-based worlds. You don't know what to fucking do unless you got a job description written and a boss checking over you. And it's the people that know who are self-motivated. It's the entrepreneurs and the self-motivated. Not about being better. I'm not saying it's better. I'm saying that those folks are going to be the leaders of, and these are the kinds of folks that lead by example. These aren't the kind of folks that hide in a fucking ivory tower. I'm talking about the go-getters. I'm talking about the people that make their dreams happen. Talking about the people with vision who don't need, they're self-motivated. And this world has done a number on crushing that spirit. And so, God, if you find that person, one, but then if you still find them, given what the past decades have been in crushing that, and making that really, really hard, those are the folks. That's my frequency. That's where I'm at. It's not better. But right now, we're fast approaching a time of people that you need to clear a new path and just show the way to the masses. I don't want to be anybody's boss. I don't want to be telling anybody they're doing anything wrong. I'm just telling you that's a new game out there. I've been playing it for 8 years, full time, fucking for real. I put myself almost 6 figures in debt to play it. And I'm on the other side of that debt. I'm on the other side of that debt in a really, really big way. And it's time to revisit that story from 8 years ago, because I'm a completely different person than I was then. Yet, so I'm able to talk about it without really being attached to it, and more so open myself up to the light and dark aspects of it without risk of anybody feeding that reality, because that was 8 years ago and I'm so far beyond it. There's no risk of that. And I think that's also a piece of what I'm being called to do. There's just all these storylines and all these ways of sharing that I'm being drawn to do, and I'm overthinking it. I need to feel it. And I sense that I am coming into that this month. And this recording will mark a very conscious awareness of that. Whether or not I share it publicly matters not, because as I always say, I am always first and foremost talking to myself. And if it's only myself and the universe to whom I'm talking, that is enough for me. And I think there's value. My hypothesis is that others can find value in this, but quite honestly, only if they're open to it. And you're open to it if you're seeking and being called and feeling what's coming just ahead of us in terms of this shift in all of humanity, in all of reality. If you're feeling that, you might be drawn to listen to the insanity and the crazy things that come through me. But man, I'll be all the crazy anybody wants me to be because, or needs me to be, because these are indeed fantastically wonderful times that lie ahead. And your soul chose to be here. We all chose to be here. And we chose with we chose with great purpose and great reason. And the opportunity to remember that is right in front of us. And the more that we remember, the more that we find those with whom we made these soul plans, oh my God, you're just not even going to recognize what your world will be and what your life will become very quickly. But you do have to choose it, and it is a different game. So there you go.